Good day din, Ami. So the topic that was assigned to us, BCAEd students, is about the different types of cognitive exam. The multiple choice test, the true or false test, the matching type test, the fill in the blank test, and the essay type test, respectively. So to begin, my name is Maria Concepcion de Oro, and together with my fellow BCAEd students, we will first discuss the matching type test. We cannot deny the fact that we are all familiar with this multiple choice test, and this is the most common one. And we might ask, why do we use this type of test too much that even the PRC board exam is constructed with this type of questions? So the reason is because multiple choice test questions can be an effective and efficient way to assess learning outcomes. And as we go along with our discussion, we will know why this type of test is said to be an efficient and effective way to assess learning outcome. Multiple choice test items have several potential advantages. First is its versatility. But before we get there, what do we mean when we say the word versatile? So versatile means being able to adapt or be adapted to many different functions or activities. Multiple choice test items can be written to assess various levels of learning outcome. It is versatile in a sense that it can be applicable to different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. With this type of test, we can create questions that will test the remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, and evaluating level of our students. But on the other hand, there are obvious limits on what can be tested in multiple choice test items. It is not an effective way to test our students' ability to organize thought, articulate explanation, and create ideas. The second potential advantage of multiple choice exam is its reliability. And reliability is defined as the degree to which a test consistently measures a learning outcome. And multiple choice exam is reliable in a sense that it is less susceptible from guessing than any other type of exam. In an instance, in true or false question, there is a 50% chance that the student will get the right answer from guessing, compared to the multiple choice item, which the probability of guessing the right answer will depend on how many choices there is. And most commonly, the possibility of getting the right answer is only at 25%. The reliability is enhanced when the number of multiple choice items focused on a single learning objective is increased. In addition, the objective scoring associated with multiple choice test items frees them from problems with scorer inconsistency that can plague the scoring of essay questions. The third and the last potential advantage of the multiple choice exam is its validity. And validity is the degree to which a test measures the learning outcomes it claims to measure. And the validity of the multiple choice exam is anchored on its versatility. Because the multiple choice exam can have a wide scope of courses materials, the questions can have a good representation for each topic. And because the students can typically answer a multiple choice item much more quickly than an essay questions, tests based on multiple choice item can typically focus on a relatively broad representation of course materials, thus increasing the validity of the assessment. But of course, the versatility, reliability, and the validity of the multiple choice exams will depend on how we will construct the multiple choice items. Multiple choice item has two parts, the STEM and alternatives. So basically, the STEM is the problem itself. On the other hand, alternatives are the choices. And alternatives consist of one correct alternative and incorrect alternatives known as distractors.
Hi everyone, I'm Ina Magnan. I'm here to discuss the guidelines on how to construct an effective STEM. So before that, let me define what is STEM. So STEM is the section of multiple choice item that possesses the problem that the student must answer. So STEM can be in the form of question or an incomplete sentence. So there are 4 guidelines on how to construct an effective STEM. So the first one is the STEM should be meaningful by itself and should present a definite problem. So just a clear learning objectives, it must be outlined. So vague question may offer the opportunity for students to demonstrate inferred knowledge but do not directly evaluate whether they have achieved the learning goal. So let me give you an example. So which of these 2 examples has a good STEM? So the first one, definitely the poor STEM. Because the stem itself is the problem. The next one, or the example number 2, has a good stem because the question or the stem stating the problem or give the meaningful stem rather than the first one. So in these guidelines, the student must know what the problem is without having to read the response option or the alternatives. So the second guidelines in constructing an effective stem is the stem should not contain irrelevant material, which can decrease the reliability and validity of the test scores. Extra words and irrelevant material or irrelevant information should not be included in the question stem because it can confuse readers and potentially impact responses. So let me show you an example. So the first one and the second one. So which of these example has a good stem? So definitely the number 2 or the second one example has a poor stem because it's too long and wordy. So in constructing a stem, do not contain irrelevant material. Avoid wordy stem by removing irrelevant data. So too long and wordy stem is not appropriate. So definitely the first one has a good stem. So the last guidelines that we have in constructing an effective stem is the stem should be a question or a partial sentence. Create full sentences, preferable in question form. Partial sentences increase the cognitive load of the question. As a student, continually reflect on the stem as they consider each possible answer. So let me show you an example. So the first one has an interior blank, which can be full to remembering, while the other one has a full stem, where students continually think and reflect on the stem as they consider each possible question. So, clear and full question stem focus on the knowledge that the student gain.
Good day everyone, I'm Erica Shane Rigodon and I will discuss you the constructing effective alternatives. So, number 1 is all alternatives should be plausible. The function of the incorrect alternative is to serve as distractors, which should be selected by students who did not achieve the learning outcome but ignored by students who did achieve the learning outcome. Alternatives that are implausible don't serve as a functional distractors and thus should be used. Common student errors provide the best source of distractors. Example of plausible alternatives is who gathered the data that have revealed the structure of DNA. Like, ang mga multiple choice na pinagpipilian dito is yung kung sino yung gumawa or a person who will that, like pag sa building yung mga famous building na structure, kung sino yung tao na gumawa nun. Second is alternative should be state clearly and concisely. Items that are excessively wordy assess student reading ability rather than their entertainment of the learning objective. So, ang example naman nito is the term hypothesis is as used to research is defined as. Parang dito naman is sa multiple choice na to is kung ano yung i-define niya doon sa pamimilian na sagot. Ang nakalagay doon is yung i-define niya yung about doon sa hypothesis na yun. Third is alternative should be mutually exclusive. Alternatives with overlapping content may be considered trick items by test takers, excessive use of which can erode trust and respect for the testing process. So, ang sample naman nito is how many chromosomes are found in the typical human cell. So, dito nakalagay yung kung ilan or numbers, kung ilan ba dito sa multiple choice na to yung parang bibilogan nyo kung alin yung tamang number, ganun. Tapos kung ilang cell dito nakalagay yung mga numberings. So number 4 naman is alternatives should be homogeneous in content. Alternatives that are heterogeneous in content can provide clues to the student about the correct answer. Ang example nito is, which of the following is one of the ways that the membranes of winter wheat are able to remain fluid when it's extremely cold? So, dito naman, pipiliin mo dito yung sa multiple choice nito kung alin yung best na sagot, or kung alam mo kung ano yung sa palagay mo is best dun sa question na sagot mo yun. Number 5 naman is alternatives should be free from clues about which response is correct. Sophisticated test takers are alert to independent clues to the correct answer, such as differences in grammar, length, formatting, and language choice in the alternatives. It's therefore important that alternatives have a grammar consistent with the stem, are parallel in form, are similar in length, use similar language. So, dito naman sa alternative should be free from clues. Kailangan naman dito is yung mga grammar, yung form ng pagkakagawa ng mga question about sa multiple choice. Tapos yung mga pantay-pantay nila, yung length. Tapos yung sa mga, yung gagamitin mo dito yung mga similar language.
My name is Icy Mandugon, Culture and Arts, 3rd year. Number 6, in constructing effective alternatives. The alternatives, all of the above and none of the above, should not be used. I know that many students like me encounter this kind of alternatives in their examination. So, in writing multiple choice type test, we discourage to use these alternatives. Why? When all of the above is used as an answer, test takers who can identify more than one alternative as correct can select the correct answer even if unsure about other alternatives. Also, none of the above. When none of the above is used as an alternative, test takers who can eliminate a single option can thereby eliminate a second option. In either case, students can use spatial knowledge to arrive at the correct answer. If we are going to use all of the above and none of the above as an alternative, make sure that this is the correct answer. The goal of the teacher is to measure the competency of the students. And if you want to measure the competency of your students, create or write a better multiple choice test. So number 7, in constructing effective alternatives. The alternatives should be presented in logical order, alphabetical or numerical, to avoid bias towards certain option. I just want to share my experience when I'm taking my examination. If I don't know the correct answer, I will choose the one na yung pinakamahaba na option, na alternatives, kapag hindi ko alam yung option. So, alternative should be presented in logical order. So, if you are going to use alternatives or nouns in your alternatives, make it alphabetical order. And if you are going to use numbers, arrange them according to their value. Highest to lowest or lowest to highest. So number 8, in constructing effective alternatives, the number of alternatives can vary among items as long as all alternatives are plausible. Plausible alternatives serve as functional distractors, which are those chosen by students that have not achieved the objective but ignored by students that have achieved the objectives. There is a little difference in difficulty, discrimination, and test score reliability among items containing 2, 3, and 4 distractors. Creating alternatives never use 2 only alternatives. Multiple choice type test should have at least 3 alternatives. We have additional guidelines. First is avoid complex multiple choice items in which some or all of alternatives consist of different combination of options. As with all of the above answer, the sophisticated test taker can use partial knowledge to achieve a correct answer. As you can see here, the example, alternatives, A, B, C, D, meron ditong D, A and B and C, A and C. This alternative used in a major examination, especially in college. But in basic education, we discourage to use these complex multiple choice items. So another guidelines, keep the specific content of items independent of one another. Savvy test taker can use information in one question to answer another question, reducing the validity of the test. Make sure that items should be independent from one another. And this is the end of multiple choice test. Thank you for listening.
Eugene Gadget, and I am reporting the true or false test. True or false test questions are well suited for the assessment of both the learner's retention of specific information from a course and their general understanding of the material. From the word retention, according to Bloom, it's a level of remembering. So also, the general understanding of the material, also understanding. So we use true or false for applying. So we can use is a understanding level and remembering level. Okay. A learner can answer a large number of true or false questions within a short period of time. This enables you to cover wide area of knowledge and test for understanding of every significant point, even if you are on a tight schedule. So, pag, siguro any topic dito ay pwede. Depende sa major mo or kahit anong klaseng lesson ang tinatahal, any topic dito na kayang i-cover within siguro mga 1 month and 2 months. Yan, pwede siya. Any topic, pag gagamitin mo yung true or false. Kasi true or false naman kahit anong topic, suitable siya. So, note that despite the name, you are not forced to use the true or false pair of answers. Specifically, yes or no will serve just as well. Use whatever option works the best for you. So, use whatever option works the best for you. So, kung sa true or false, ang pwedeng isagot, you can also answer yes or no. It is just an option, depende sa'yo. Yan. Educators. First and foremost, because they take a little time to construct, but also due to the fact that tests comprising of such question are very easy to grade. So yun, madali yung tanong, madali din gradean. Simply put T if the answer is true and put F if put F if the answer is false. So ganun lang din. So minsan madali siyang gradean kung maayos mo siyang kinonstruct, kung inayos mo yung paggagawa ng question. So many see the results obtained with the help of true or false question as a dubious because of the high probability of learner guessing the correct answer. Minsan ganito, minsan pag naging perfect, doubted ka na baka hinulaan lang din ba talaga ng estudyante or talaga bang sinagutan niya. Nagda-doubt ka sa sarili mo kung talaga bang alam niya yung question na yun. However, in fact, the chances of getting a passing grade while relying purely on guesswork are slim. O yun, provided that the test contains a sufficient number of questions. So, marami sa ating mga nanguhula, lalo while relying purely on guesswork are slim. So, dapat balance yan. Halimbawa ay, for example is, 5 true, tapos 5 ding false. Hindi pwede yung lahat ay true kasi pag hinulaan nung student na true lahat yung sagot, mape-perfect siya. Parang easy lang, ano lang, nagre-rely siya sa relying purely on guesswork. So dapat balance siya. Halimbawa ay sa sa 5 true, 5 false, dapat magkakahalo-halo yun. Like with the other precise question. Answer to true or false question are harder to guess correctly than those multiple choice. And kung inayos mo yung paggagawa ng true or false, yun, masasagutan din ng maayos ng mga estudyante. Hindi lang nagre-rely sa hula-hula. Yan. So, this being said, course authors often do true-false question as a disservice by not putting any effort in constructing them. So, ito yung isa sa mga nagiging problema sa true and false kasi madali na nga siyang sagutan, minamadali din yung paggagawa ng question. Hindi sila nagpuput ng effort sa pagko-construct ng isang question sa true and false. So, yung mga student o yung mga estudyante na parang hindi rin sila naglalagay ng effort kasi nga namamali rin, di ba? So, you have to put an effort by constructing true or false kahit madali siya at para rin sa mga estudyante. Para rin naman sa mga estudyante kaya kailangan natin mag-construct ng maayos na question kahit madali lang yung tanong. So, in addition, incorrect answers to true and false question give no indication as to what knowledge the learner is missing and the reason why they answered incorrectly. So, the good thing sa true and false test is yung ma-identify kagad natin kung natuto ba yung mga estudyante, kung they easily learn ba or hindi. For example, multiple choice. Unlike sa multiple choice na, di ba maraming siyang option. Maraming option doon, A, B, C, D, gano'n. So, doon ma-identify mo, ano kaya dito yung answers at yung answer di A ba, B ba, o C ba? Dito sa true and false, you can easily identify kung true ba o false. So, madali mo din ma-identify yung student mo kung natuto ba siya o hindi. Kasi true and false lang naman di ba? So, yun. So sa pagko-construct sana ay ayusin natin yung pagko-construct ng question. Dapat may rin tayo, may follow-up kung Mr. Galyon, bakit mali yung nasagutan, bakit mali yung answer mo dito sa true and false? Ay sir, nanghula lang po ako eh. So yun, dapat mino-motivate natin yung mga student natin sa pagsasagot sa pamamagitan ng paggagawa ng question na maayos yun. So yun, for the last one, advantages. So enables you to cover a wide area of knowledge. So dito, hindi lang sa buong chapter mo yung isang you can use all of your topic kasi nga wide area of knowledge. Pwede kahit saan yung true and false. So second is can be constructed out of a few words, which make them less dependent on the learner's ability to read carefully. So true and false na nga lang, baka mamali ka pa. So siyempre ayusin mo yung pag-construct ng question. So magbabasa talaga silang na maayos, 'di ba? Direct na to the point. Bakit mo pahuhulaan kung true and false na lang? Then syempre mapipilitan sila magbasa ng question. So yun. Take a very little time to be answered. On the average learner can answer 3 to 4 true and false question per minute. So
The disadvantages of the true or false test type of questions is learners have a 50% chance to guess the correct answer to every individual true or false question. So it means if the type of questions is true or false, 50% lang yung chance to guess the correct answers and 50% din yung chance na makuha mo yung mga maling sagot. Okay, so required memorization of facts. Answer may be of use due to wording, measures only cognitive content, low in reliability, may measures reading level more than ability level. So, dito, yun nga, yung disadvantage nga ng true or false test, require more on memorization lang. Kumbaga, if yung nabasa mo sa like for example, yung nabasa mong sentence is kagayang-kagaya ng sentence na nakalagay sa question, obvious na yung sagot na, yun pala yun, madali lang. So, maliban na lang kung ang ginagawa ng ibang teacher is pinapalitan nila ng ibang words yung nasa question, but same definition lang din. So, doon, masusukat mo yung kaalaman ng students kung ito ba talaga is naiintindihan or basta lang binasa. Okay. Most of the test time is spent on reading choices and finding the right answers. So, it is hard to accurately gauge a learner's actual understanding of the material judging by the result of the test composed of true or false questions. So, kagaya nga nung sinabi ko na hindi natin nasusukat yung actual understanding ng isang students kapag true or false test yung type ng questions. Kasi, kapag binasa lang naman nila, at yun nga yung nakalagay dun sa question, so alam na agad nila na yun yung sagot. Guidelines. State your questions as clearly and ambiguously as possible. So, if you construct true or false types of questions, kailangan clearly and, kumbaga, malinaw as possible. Okay. So, keep your questions short and to the point. Never try to cover multiple ideas or notions with a single true or false question. So, example is, William Shakespeare is a famous singer. So, kumbaga, maikli siya and direct to the point siya. So, sabi dito, never try to cover multiple ideas or notion with a single true or false question. So, hindi mo na kailangan magpaulit-ulit ng questions na alam naman agad ang sagot na, true pala ito. Ito pala is false. So, kagaya nga dito sa example ko na alam mo na agad na false kung kilala ng mga students si William Shakespeare, kung kilala nung magbabasa ng tanong na hindi siya singer. So, alam mo na agad ang sagot na false kasi si William Shakespeare is a English playwright and a poet and an actor. So, every question must present itself as a statement that is unequivocally true or false and does not allow any conceptions. Avoid using negative constructions and questions. And construct your questions in such a way as to make incorrect answers appear more tempting to learners who do not know the correct answers. So, dito, kapag gagawa ka daw ng true or false test questions, kailangan lagyan mo din ng, kumbaga, parang tuksuin mo din yung students doon sa ginawa mong test na, kumbaga, malilito siya, kumbaga, magdadalawang isip siya na, tama ba to? Tama ba to or mali? Kumbaga, dito mo talaga masusukat yung cognitive level ng isang students pagdating sa ganitong tanong na hindi niya to alam. More on more on reading lang to. Hindi niya inunawa kung ano yung binabasa niya. Binago lang naman yung isang words na mali na siya kasi iba yung nakalagay dun sa PPT. Hindi yung nakalagay dun sa question. So, ang tendency talaga is false yung isasagot or mamali siya. Okay. So, and the true or false questions it's very handy when you need to check whether learners hold any misconceptions about the material or misunderstand it. Make sure that the questions cover every key point of the material and the lack of understanding of the specific areas of knowledge will be plain to see.
Modified true or false. A more advanced variety of the true or false question exists and is called true or false correction or modified true or false. Such question demands that original statement be corrected if the answer in the question is false. A modified true or false question is a statement that the student must identify as either true or false. If the statement is false, however, student must provide the word for phrase that makes the statements true. True or false test items, also referred to as alternative response questions, are used to assess a student's ability to determine whether the statement is correct. For example, question: the capital of the Philippines is Quezon. The answer is false. Another example is: the capital of the Philippines is Manila, and the answer is true. This way, even a learner guesses correctly that false is the correct answer to the question, the answer will not count unless they manage to come up with the correct key as well. The author of the test decides what part of question will act as the key and underlines. Here is an example to help you better understand the concept of true or false questions. The monarchy is a form of government based upon a principle of collective decision making. A modified true or false question is similar to a standard true or false question, in that the student must indicate if a statement or phrase is true or false. For these kinds of questions, a student must also change or edit the question if it's false to make it true. And the next is conclusion. True or false question is the most common question type, and it's widely used in testing. Such questions is the easiest to construct but at the same time present the most potential pitfalls that must be avoided. Learners can spot patterns in the way questions are constructed and guess the correct answer based on the question's grammatical makeup and other indirect hints. Every type has its own strength and weaknesses, and that one is deal. By following the best practices, you can improve your test and make them more effective. Take the best every questions type has offer use their strong suits and avoid the drawbacks. If the question is too easy, it's easy to come up the answer by the students because of the pattern or hint to follow and easy to identify the correct answer if it's true or false. And the best for making a questionnaire in true or false, make a different way of questioning, make it hard and make it effectively.
So the another type of cognitive test is the matching type test format, which provides a way for learners to connect a word, sentence, or phrase in one column to its corresponding word, sentence, or phrase in the second column. So the items in the first column are called premises, and the answers in the second column that supports the premises are called responses. So usually the column A, which is the premises, are labeled in numbers, and the column B are labeled in capital letters. So um, the number of items in the first column and in the first column does not necessarily have to match um, the number of items in the second column. Um, for my observation as a student, since I have um, experience and I have deal with many types of matching type format exam, um, marami akong na-encounter na hindi magka-same or hindi match yung number of items sa first column and the second column. So, I think that's the common technique of the teachers to to help the to help the students to analyze more, to 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 read more on that matching type of exam, since the matching type format exam is given as easy as possible, since you usually have to connect all that stuff, and I think that um, it is way better for them to allot more time thinking by giving them unmatched items of number to the responses. So to avoid confusion, arrange the column analogical, such as chronological, numerical, or alphabetical in form. So this matching type is effective when you need to measure the learner's ability to identify the relationship or association between similar items, the cause and effect, such as the likes, and they work best when the course content has many parallel concepts. For example, terms and definitions, objects or pictures and labels, symbols and proper names, causes and effects, scenarios and responses, principles and scenarios to which they apply. So, mas madali siyang mas madali yung mga ganitong topic in in a form of matching type test kasi mas chronologically correct sila and mas align yung ganitong type of format since ang objective nito is to match the corresponded answers um, to the given questions. So this matching type format is usually used to assess the student's comprehension, item association, knowledge recall, organization skills. But this format is often test only the lower order thinking skills and are unable to test higher order thinking skills such as the application, the creating, and the judgment skills. So these are used to measure the learner's thinking at the lower levels of knowledge and comprehension. So it often requires recall, rather than comprehension and more sophisticated levels of thinking. So according to the Bloom's taxonomy, this matching type will just only um, include the remembering phase of the Bloom's taxonomy model, in which in this model sinasabi na pinakamababang form ay yung remembering. So, since the matching type is usually given na lahat, given na yung answers and given na yung solution, given na yung answers and given the questions, so the students are only need to provide the what they remember on this specific topic, and they are in need to just recall all these recalling all this knowledge, and able to answer this matching. So that's it for the explanation of the matching type format.
Good day everyone. Today we will be discussing the guidelines of matching type tests. First, keep questions short and straightforward. It means make it simple and all the questions are precise, and also avoid unnecessary words or unfamiliar words. Kasi kung magbibigay tayo ng mga hindi sila familiar, lalo na yung mga malalalim na words, is malalo silang mahihirapan ina-identify yung tamang sagot. And next po, do not carried away or adding additional items. Kung 10 items lang, 10 items lang talaga yung ilalagay natin. Hindi yung magkakaroon ng 11 items, 13 items. Kung 10 lang talaga. Kumbaga maging consistent tayo sa pagbibigay din ng mga questions, lalo na sa mga pagpapasagot po natin sa mga students, kasi lalo silang mahihirapan or mas lalo silang magugulumihanan kung maraming tanong na ibibigay natin sa kanila. And next po, it is best to arrange the items in the left column according to some criterion. You can arrange all the questions from alphabetically or can be chronologically, kasi it's better po na makikita na maayos or good yung appearance ng ating questionnaire at magkakasunod-sunod siya at malinis tingnan. So next po, make sure that no items in the right column can be matched to more than one item in the left one. Dito naman po, kailangan natin ensure yung mga items natin or na dun sa column A or column B is match po dun sa tamang sagot, or wag tayong magbibigay ng dalawang questions pero isa lang dun sa column B yung sagot. Kasi lalo silang mahihirapan na, bakit parehas lang to? Parehas lang naman yung meaning nitong dalawang questions na to. So, nagbibigay lang din po ng um, kaguluhan din sa bata or sa mga students po natin if ganun po yung mangyayari. And next po, avoid positioning matching test question in such a way that the list is separated into by a page break. Kailangan din po natin iwasan yung paglalagay ng mga questionnaire in the next page. Kung meron sa front page, sa first page, and hindi na siya magkakasya, i-avoid po natin yung A sa second page natin, lalo na kung siya ay matching type test. Kasi mas mahihirapan yung bata na identify yung tanong and dun sa pagpipilian nila if 2 pages yung titignan nila. Kung ganito, maaring ganto sila ng ganto, mas lalo sila mahihirapan and magiging kalito-lito yun sa kanila. Kung much better po, kung hindi naman na siya magkakasya, we can do na napaliitin yung font para magkasya sa isang page. So, next naman po is, when constructing answer, try to keep them interconnected by theme and the manner of presentation. Dito naman po, sa last nating guidelines is, ano po natin, i-sure po din natin na yung mga questions and habang talagang nagsasagot yung mga student natin is may natututunan sila dun sa topic na meron tayo. Kasi minsan kasi kung makakapagbigay tayo ng mga matching type pero hindi naman connected sa mga pinag-aralan or topics nila or hindi sila familiar dun sa matching type na yun, it is better to give them questionnaires kung sila po ay familiar. And yung pagbibigay ng maayos na papel and malinis po. Yun lang po.
Here are the advantages and disadvantages of matching type test. It allows for great flexibility and accuracy in counting the learner's score and gives an objective assessment of the learner's knowledge. The matching type test is simple to construct score. It is well suited in measuring associations. Like a multiple choice test, it presents the students with questions and alternatives. At their most useful when used in areas most dealing with facts and least chance of guessing the correct answers compared to other question types. In matching type test, it reduces the effects of guessing, although the chance of guessing increases as the student progresses in answering items. This, however, is easily remedied by adding more options. Next is the disadvantages. In disadvantages, it is suited for gauging the learner's higher understanding, especially analysis and synthesis levels. Another one is answering matching questions is time-consuming for learners. So one of the disadvantages of this is it tends to ask students to associate trivial informations. Unfortunately, most matching type emphasizes memorization, although it is impossible to construct items that measure more complex cognitive skills. And last is introducing too many options can make it so that the question test the ability to search first, relevant knowledge second. In case of commercial answer sheet, matching items can accommodate no more than 5 options. So, in summary, matching test questions presents learners with 2 items separated into 2 columns and ask them to match items from the first column to the corresponding items in the second. The number of items in the first column does not necessarily
have to match that in second, and it is totally possible to have more items in the second column than in the first one. Matching questions will serve you fine in tests that cover large amount of materials. Just a few well-constructed matching questions will adequately test the understanding of a single topic or even a number of topics at once. They are also remarkably easy to construct. In essence, all you need to do is to pick the key facts and create lists.
I would like to introduce to you first myself. I am Anja Bindumirez, a third-year Bachelor of Culture and Arts Education. So, fill-in-the-blank questions seems quite easy to create. With these types of question, you do not have to come up with answer choices as you do for multiple choice question. However, even though they appear to be easy, realize that these are number of issues that might arise when creating these types of questions.
Fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks questions are a common type of question due to their ease of creation and usefulness in classes across the curriculum. They are considered an objective question because there is only one possible answer. We have 4 question stems, and these are the who, what, when, and where. These stems are typically used to measure a wide variety of relatively simple skills and specific knowledge. These include the knowledge of terms, knowledge of principles, methods, or procedures, knowledge of specific facts, and simple interpretation of data.
Advantage and disadvantages of fill in the blanks. First, advantages. Advantages. Provides an excellent means for measuring specific knowledge, reduces guessing by the students, forces the students to supply the answer, or in other words, teachers can get real feel for what their students actually know. In this case, the advantage of fill in the blanks is to measure what your students really, kung ano ba yung natutunan nila talaga sa'yo. Kasi, in fill in the blanks, you will supply the best answer, not only na hula-hula lang, or something na kung ano yung tumama sa utak mo, yun agad isasagot mo. So, kailangan mong isagot doon kung ano yung dapat talaga dun sa sagot na yun. In a song, like in a local song, Leron, Leron, Sinta. This is the question in fill in the blank. Says, Leron, Leron, Sinta, blank ng papaya. So, hindi mo naman pwedeng ilagay dun sa sagot ng blank is mangga ng papaya. Diba? So, parang hindi tama. So, you're gonna do is to supply the best answer, which is buko ng papaya. And another example is in science. Blank is the center of the solar system. So, you will gonna think what is the center of the solar system, and you will put sun because sun is the center of the solar system. Next is the advantages of fill in the blanks. They are poor for measuring complex learning tasks. Instead, they are typically used for general knowledge questions on the lowest levels of Bloom's taxonomy. They must be written very specifically and carefully, as with all items. Students who are poor spellers might experience problems. It is important for you to decide if the spelling is going to count against the student, and if so, for how many points. So the disadvantages of fill in the blanks is, one is the spelling. If the spelling is wrong, it is wrong. And next is fill in the blanks. The question or the phrase that you're going to write must be what? Must be correct. Because pag nagkamali na ng intindi yung student mo dun sa sinulat mo, pwede na siyang magkamali rin din sa isasagot niya. Kasi may mga questions na pwedeng katulad din ng meaning dun sa ibang meaning ng question. Fill in the blanks has no choices. So, talagang kailangan dun sa question na binigay or the
phrase na binigay ng teacher is kailangan masupply mo yung tamang answer dun sa kailangang sagot. So, the disadvantage of fill in the blanks is it can limit the guessing of the student. Somehow, it is the advantage para hindi malito yung mga student. But it's also a disadvantage kasi what if hindi nila na pag-aralan yung fill in the blanks na sa fill in the blanks na nilagay yung question, so parang mawawalan na agad ng sagot. So, in writing a fill in the blanks question is must be written very specifically and carefully as all with the items, because pag nagkamali na ang isa, so may tendency ng magkamali yung iba. Lastly, what I have said earlier, they are typically used for general knowledge questions on the lowest level of Bloom's taxonomy. So the lowest level of the Bloom's taxonomy is the remembering. In answering the fill-in-the-blanks questions, you have to remember all the things that you have learned or reviewed before the exam or the quizzes that has given to you. So if you do not remember all the things or the specific topic that is yung hinihingi nung question, so paano mo masasagutan yung fill-in-the-blanks?
So here are the following tips or guidelines in writing questions for fill in the blanks type of assessment. So the first one, only use fill in the blank questions for testing major points, not specific details. So it means that the question should be kept as simple and clear. So the second one, indicate the units and degree of precision expected. So for example, on a math question whose answer is a number of decimal places, make sure that you say how many decimal places you want the student to include. So in creating questions, you have to ensure that there is only one correct answer and the question should be asked precisely. So the third one will be omit only keywords. So since the goal is to ensure your learners can produce the term, not simplify the complex, so it is necessary that you write really clear sentences that point to only one possible correct response. So the next one will be avoid too many blanks in one item. It is best to only have one or two blanks for students to fill in per question. So it is important to limit the number of blanks per question. So each question should have one or maximum two blanks. Two blanks, not more. Because the more blanks you put into the question, the less sense the sentence has and the more difficult or confusing it is to answer. So, the next one, when possible, put blanks near the end of the item, or simply use the blank judiciously to ensure that the sentence makes sense without the term in the blank, and that the intended term is easily derived from the sentence you do provide. Otherwise, it will likely be confusing or leaving the learners to frustration and guesswork, which does not accurately test their knowledge. So the last one will be, do not provide clues by adjusting the length of the blank or the number of blanks. So this is always a challenge in developing good questions. But an important point to keep in mind, in fill in the blank type questions, one of the good thing is to make the length of the blanks uniform, because it's too easy for the learners to view the length of the blank and assume that the target term fits there. So they have to search in their internal information for a term of a certain length.
Okay, so now that we are recording on progress, our group will be discussing essay as a form of assessment together with Eliza Lady Tanyola and Miss Algin Joy and Zoilos. And of course, yours truly, Mr. Shirley Justin Armangera. So just to give you a little background on the definition or the meaning itself, is coming from the last PowerPoint presentation that we had from the last semester, from the last rotation, and also coming from the internet. Okay, so for our first definition is that it says that essay are useful for teachers when they want students to select, organize, analyze, synthesize, and or evaluate information. So in other words, they rely on the upper level of the Bloom's taxonomy. So the next definition will be coming from the internet, and it says that an essay exam requires you to see the significance and meaning of what the students already know about the subject or lesson. It tests the knowledge and understanding of the subject and also the skill when it comes to reading and writing. So to be successful in answering the essay exam, the students must prove that they immediately know the material, or they already do their advanced reading. They already have the background of what would be asked or what will be the question in their essay exam. So for the last slide, I will be discussing the two type of essay question, and it will be the restricted and extended response. I know that this is a self-explanatory, but allow me to further explain it. The restricted response is a type of essay question that has limit on what the students will be discussing in the essay based on the wording of the question, including the length, content, style, and even the organization. So the word itself restricted and the clue word limit. I know that there's a boundary when answering this type of question, meaning to say that is no more, no less. Just to give you an example, allow me to read the example. Give 3 reasons why the government should or should not allow teachers to work abroad as a domestic helper. The students have to answer the 3 reasons, no more, no less. They don't need to further explain their opinion about the question. So for the extended response, this type of essay question is to select what they wish to include in order to answer the question. It can be answered in whatever the student want to elaborate, explain further explain and prove their answer. So the students have the free will on how are they going to explain their answer when in their essay. It could be long or it could be short but is concise. But to give you an example, it is, do you think teachers should be allowed to work abroad as domestic helper? Explain and defend your answer. So in this example, the students have to prove and also answer or give their opinion about the question. So compared to restricted response, in extended response, the students have to further explain the question and their answer. So the advantage, disadvantages, and the guidelines will be discussed by Miss Eliza Lay Ditanyola and Miss Algin Joy and Zoila. See you in a bit.
Let's proceed to the advantages and disadvantages of the essay type of test. So first are the advantages. A 6-question extended response essay exam is simpler and is easier to create and to give than a 60-item multiple choice type of test. Why? Because essay type of test is not time consuming. Teachers can use this essay type of test where they could allot minimum points to maximum points depending on the student's answer. It is more convenient to give this type of test where teachers can assess if the students understand or they learned about the specific concept or topic or what are their takeaways. Next is a written examination is the only method to determine an examinee can arrange and express his thoughts in an ordered manner. So this essay type of test can help students to have a good study habit where they could list some ideas, where they could arrange arguments, where they can include merits and demerits, pros and cons. So this essay type of test can help them to make outlines where they could summarize their ideas, thoughts, and concepts. Next is these exams are the most effective approach to assess some of the objectives. They may demonstrate your ability to arrange facts, critic, or support a viewpoint. So in this type of test, nabibigyan ng emphasize yung perspective, viewpoint, and opinion ng students. Nakikita kung paano nila na-process yung information na binibigay ng teacher, kung paano nila ito ma-deliver through writing. Students can show off their initiative, the originality of their thoughts, and the richness of their imagination. When they have the chance to respond freely. So their ideas are valid as long as that idea or knowledge is connected to the competence that the teacher included. Next is their answers need not to be fully correct or incorrect, but they should be near and is direct to the point. You may be as thorough and exact as you want as long as it is possible and connected to the topic. Next is there is no room for guessing. They are useful in assessing the student's ability to apply their information in the real world context. So yun nga, hinahanap or nabibigyang pansin yung perspective ni students or viewpoint ni students kung paano niya nakikita yung topic na yun, yung specific topic na yun. Nagre-reflect sa sarili niya yung sagot niya. Let's proceed to the disadvantage of the essay type of test. So the first one is that essay exams do not allow for more extensive sampling of the context. Next, some examination promote selective reading while others stress cramming. So dahil nga required na ibigay mo yung perspective, viewpoint, and opinion ng isang student, kailangan niyang magbasa dahil based dun sa nabasa niya, yung isasagot niya. Next, spelling, excellent handwriting, colorful ink, neatness, grammar, and the length of the response may all have an impact on the scoring. Yes, it has an impact. Because kung mali yung grammar and mali yung spelling, mali na agad yung interpretation. Maswerte tayo ngayon dahil naka-online setting tayo. So, lahat ng responses natin is through digital. Type-written, hindi siya handwritten. Next, there is little value in long answer type questions because they are less valid and less reliable. That's all for the advantages and disadvantages.
Student skills required for essay test. Before expecting students to perform well on either type of essay question, we must make sure that they have the required skills to excel. Now, the following are the 4 skills that students should have learned and practiced before taking essay exams. Okay, but it doesn't mean that the student is the only one who needs or who will make effort to achieve the required skills. So, because the teacher is also part of it, since siya yung nag-impart ng knowledge sa bawat estudyante, so it is also expected from the teacher to help the students to have the required skills for essay tests. Okay, so first is the ability to select appropriate material from the information learned in order to best answer the question. Okay, so meaning the scope of the answer is only limited on what is the question is aiming for. So for example, if the question is about the story that the teacher discussed, then you will get the best answer to what you have learned on that specific story. So if this is the question, then this is the answer. Next is the ability to organize that material in an effective manner. So sometimes there are teachers na nag-i-include ng guide questions in answering an essay. So a student must have the skill to organize their answers. Like for example, what to include in the introduction part, body, or conclusion. Next is the ability to show how ideas relate and interact in a specific context. So for example, an essay question about comparing and contrasting 2 different topics, viewpoints, or even things, then they have the ability to explain and answer it clearly. Next is the ability to write effectively in both sentences and paragraphs. These are the guidelines in constructing an effective essay question. First is begin with the lesson objectives in mind. Make sure to know what you wish the student to show by answering the essay question. So before giving the essay question to the students, the teacher must know first what is the answer on that specific question, to know if the students really attain the goal or the lesson objectives.
Next is decide if your goal requires a restricted or extended response. In general, if you wish to see if the student can synthesize and organize the information that they learned, then restricted response is the way to go. However, if you wish them to judge or evaluate something using the information taught during class, then you will want to use the extended response. So, what I have remembered during the discussion of Dean Amy, that if your target is high school or under basic education, then the restricted response is more suited or more effective. But if it is college or higher level, then it is okay to use extended response. Next is if you are including more than one essay, be cognizant of time constraints. You do not want to punish students because they ran out of time on the test. So as a teacher, be aware of the time you will give on an essay type of test since it really takes time to answer it. Kasi halimbawa, iba-ibang type of test ang ginamit. Kanyari, 1 to 60 multiple choice, then 61 to 80, modified true or false, tapos the rest is essay na. Tapos ang time lang na ibinigay is, for example, 30 minutes. So I don't think matatapos ng estudyante yun. So be aware and considerate of the time. Yung hindi mahihirapan yung estudyante and at the same time, hindi din sobrang dali para sa kanila yung exam. Next is write the question in a novel or interesting manner to help motivate the student. So I remember this since one of my professors also did this. So if you will create essay question, you can put a quote or a well-known proverb that is related to the topic. So the students can relate or be motivated and at the same time exciting or interesting. Next is state the number of points that the essay is worth. You can also provide them with a time guideline to help them as they work through the exam. So for example, essay number 1 is good for 5 points, then the next is for 10 points, and for the time naman, you can state like, answer it for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, like that. Next is prepare and use a relatively large number of questions requiring short answers rather than just a few questions involving long answers. So for example, 5 essays where the answer will be limited to 2 to 3 sentences only. So it is better daw to use it rather than to use one question tapos 300 words dapat ang answer.